Hey there, Aluxers, welcome back. At the start of 2020, none of us could have predicted the situation we're currently living through. But by now, in late May, more of us are starting to look at what life will be like in the coming months and years ahead. Most of us already know the question isn't when will things get back to normal, but what will the new normal look like? And that's a question that we'll be looking at today. Specifically, we're asking what impact it's going to have on big companies. Because what big companies do affects all of us. Maybe we work for them, but even if we don't, we buy their products and use their services. When an entire sector grinds to a halt, it disrupts the way we go about our lives. But there's another side of the coin too. When a big company comes up with a new technology or adopts a new paradigm, this brings fresh opportunities to our lives and can change them for the better. Welcome to alux.com. The place where future billionaires come to get inspired. If you're not subscribed yet, you're missing out. So let's take a look at the positive alongside negative trends that are already underway, predictions about how they might play out, how the pandemic is affecting big companies, and what this could mean for us all. Downsizing offices and remote working. More people than ever are working from home, and once this crisis is over, it's unlikely things will go back to how they were before. We've seen how much we can get done from home, so do we really want to go back to long commutes and dull, impersonal workplaces? And why wouldn't companies want to reduce one of their biggest overheads, rent? Yes, it seems the future of work will take place more at home. True, some people find it difficult because of all the distractions in their living rooms. More co-working spaces could be a solution. For big companies, head offices will probably still exist, but they'll be scaled down, and in some smaller companies might abandon them altogether. Having a head office could be seen as a company's status symbol instead of a necessity. The race to develop video conferencing tools. Raise your hand if you're now used to seeing your colleagues on rectangles on a screen on Skype, Google Hangouts, or 2020's big winner, Zoom. In fact, raise your hand if you now use Zoom on a daily basis, but hadn't even heard about it back in January. If offices get downgraded, video communication is here to stay. But remember that every video conferencing app has its flaws. Look at the security breaches Zoom is getting criticized for. And if just one person in your conference group doesn't use Apple, then FaceTime's a no-go. Video conferencing may not be new, but with the change happening faster than ever before, the race is on for the company that will emerge as the big winner. Just take a look at what happened in India recently when companies were asked to submit proposals for a government teleconferencing system. Over 1,900 companies sent offers. Competition is fierce, and it's no surprise the latest entry is from Facebook, who's just launched its own video conferencing app, Messenger Rooms. Exactly who will come out the winner is impossible to predict, but what's for sure is that video conferencing will continue to take big strides forward. Quicker adoption of 5G. Forget what conspiracy theorists say about it. The pandemic has shown that we really need a fix for frozen screens, delays, and bad connections. And 5G offers the lightning-fast speeds that can do this. Sure, 5G was on the way anyway, but it's now coming even faster, and the company that looks best placed to benefit from it is China's Huawei because of the advances it's made with 5G, with Ericsson and Nokia in second and third place. Health screening. If you're still working from a shared workplace, you'll probably be used to this by now, and you'd also know about it if you've been on a flight and maybe inside a shopping mall since the start of the crisis. In the USA, Amazon, Walmart, and Starbucks are using digital non-contact thermometers to check workers' temperatures, and airlines and malls use them on passengers and customers too. With nobody able to predict when a vaccine will become available, this isn't going to change for a while. And of course, it also provides an opportunity for companies that make medical devices like digital thermometers, or even more low-tech ones like face masks that have now become a part of our daily lives. Less business travel and less travel in general for the time being. It's hard to see a sector that's suffering more than the travel industry. Of course, people will still want to travel for leisure, but for a while, probably not in big numbers. And the rise in video conferencing means that business travel, like big offices, is due for a serious downsizing. Airlines have been asking governments for bailouts, and their fortunes aren't likely to change for a while until at least either a vaccine comes out or treatments that can keep the virus in check are developed. In aviation, social distancing isn't really great for the bottom line. It could mean a rise in airfares and goodbye to budget travel for a while. The outlook here is definitely on the bleak side, and some industry insiders say it could take a whole decade for aviation to get back to where it used to be. Big wins for pharmaceuticals. If airlines have pulled the short straw in the pandemic, it looks like the pharmaceutical companies are definitely sitting pretty. Most big pharma companies have ramped up production, and many of them have been getting goodwill for donations they've been making. Donations that have included face masks, chloroquine tablets, or free medical consultations. Pharma has also seen gains on the stock market since the start of the crisis, and their figures are likely to stay positive well into the future, as we continue to need treatment, tests, and medical equipment. And when one of these companies finally delivers a vaccine that will help us get back together, the reward will be huge. A step forward for AI and robots. For decades, robots and algorithms have been taking over jobs that humans used to do. In factories, it's been happening for a long time, and in other areas, it's a work in progress, like with advancements for driverless cars. But it looks like robots have got a huge boost thanks to a clear advantage they have over humans in a pandemic. You got it, they can't catch viruses, at least not this kind. Robots are being used to take temperatures and blood pressure readings from patients. They've also been delivering food to people in quarantine. They could even offer solutions to sectors that have had to reduce staff and are now in trouble, like in retail and catering. Drone waiters already existed pre-pandemic, as did robots that assembled burgers, mixed salads, or made cappuccinos. They just weren't that common, but now could provide a solution. And of course, algorithms have been taking the place of shop assistants for a long time, by suggesting purchases when customers shop online. And with online shopping happening more than ever, they'll do this even more. But what does this mean for staff who are laid off? In the short term, the picture may not look so great, but in the long term will require retraining and upskilling to jobs that add value that robots can't do. The move of manufacturing away from China. One thing the pandemic has revealed is how vulnerable global supply chains are, especially ones that are concentrated in one country, and the first country to be affected by the virus just happens to be the one that's nicknamed the Factory of the World. There are already firms that aim to move some production away from China, like Apple, who plans to shift some of their factories to India and Vietnam. But there are limits to how much this can happen, and that's because China's supply chains are so developed that it will take decades to build them up elsewhere. China won't stop being the world's biggest manufacturer anytime soon. But some businesses will relocate, and even if it doesn't shake up the Chinese economy that much, it could mean big gains for medium-sized economies like Poland when production shifts there. Manufacturing medical supplies closer to home. If there's one industry that's critical for countries to have near to their populations, that's essential supplies for dealing with an emergency. And we're not just talking medicines, also other medical supplies like face masks. Just take a look at Japan, where the government announced financial support for companies to move out of China when the crisis began. And the first company on their list was a maker of face masks. We're seeing the same thing happen with pharmaceuticals too. China and India are currently the world's biggest manufacturers of medicines, and we can see how risky it is when supply chains for essential medicines are disrupted. That's why in France, pharmaceutical companies and political leaders recently agreed they need to bring more production home to France, or at the very least closer to home to other European countries. More advanced delivery services. Sure, we made online orders before the pandemic. It's just that now we're doing it more than ever, and we're kinda getting used to it and enjoying the time it saves us on trips to the shops. So it's no surprise that Amazon is coming out strong, making gains on the stock market in the first quarter of 2020, and their orders shot up so much they had to recruit 175,000 more staff members. It's natural they'll want to upgrade their delivery services too, and this upgrade could come in the form of drones. Amazon has been looking at drone deliveries for a while now, and there are signs the pandemic could make this a reality a lot faster. Their drone delivery unit, Prime Air, just announced they're hiring a former Boeing executive to head it. And how do industry insiders interpret this? They think it means Amazon is speeding up the move to drone delivery, and it also looks like they've got competition. Package delivery company UPS has also announced they're working on a drone fleet too. All of which is just another example of how the pandemic could be taking us one step closer to the future. And with that, Aluxers, we're at the end. Even in difficult times, it's important to stay positive, which is why our question for today's video focuses on the opportunities that arise from this. Which item on today's list do you think has the most potential to bring big change for good? Let us know in the comments. And as we've already said, with every crisis comes an opportunity. And perhaps the biggest one of all we saved for your bonus. The lockdown has already cut global emissions of greenhouse gases because of reduced traffic on land and in the air. Over the years, you've probably heard news about the hole in the ozone layer making a recovery, but once the pandemic is over, we'll still be facing a climate crisis. And it seems like we haven't forgotten that. 71% of people polled around the world think that no matter how serious COVID-19 may be, climate change is still a more serious problem. But there is the potential to come out of this with greener solutions. We all see the benefits of lower traffic on our streets. Cities like Paris and Milan have already announced plans for more cycleways. The European Union, which will soon have the task of bailing out some of its biggest industries, is already thinking about making those bailouts dependent on the companies switching to sustainable energy. Exactly how this will play out is impossible to say. Nobody can predict if one positive outcome the pandemic will have is to pave the way for big companies and governments to become greener. However, the potential and desire for this to happen does exist. Thank you for spending some time with us, A-Luxers. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpicked these videos, which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question on our website, alux.com. Thank you for being an A-Luxer, and we'll see you back tomorrow.